Assalamualaikum beta. Welcome back today. We're studying nation strength, and I had given you a brief introduction of the national strength yesterday. Today we're going to study it. So the poet William Ralph Emerson, in a conversational tune, asks a rhetorical question. I have already explained to you what a rhetorical question means. The rhetorical question is, in the first stanza, the first line of the first stanza, what makes a nation's pillars high? What makes a nation's pillars high? And its foundation strong. What makes it mighty to defy the foes that round it throng? So what makes a nation's pillars high? We know a nation does not have pillars. A physical structure, a building has pillars. Nation does not have pillars. But William Ralph Emerson, the poet, the author, has used the word pillar of a nation. So the word pillar has been used here to mean figuratively the ideals of a nation. So word pillar is actually a metaphor for ideals. Pillars is a metaphor for ideals. What's a metaphor? The metaphor is the most commonly used figure of speech, a rhetorical poetic device used in the poetry. A metaphor is a word that's used for another word or idea based on some shared quality or imaginary resemblance. It's metaphor. So, the pillar here is used as a metaphor for ideals of a nation. Had the pillars of a building taller the building, had the ideals of a nation greater the nation. That's why the poem author used the word pillars for ideals of a nation. So what makes a nation's pillars high means what are the ideals of a nation that make it a great nation. And its foundation is strong. Nations have foundations? Buildings have foundations, but the foundations is again a metaphor used for values and principles. So here we know as the pillars, tall or high pillars cannot stand on an infirm foundation. As the tall and high pillars cannot stand an infirm foundation of a building, the great ideals must be supported by great principles and values. You cannot claim to have the great ideals unless you exhibit in your character the supporting principles and values. For example, somebody says, Prophet Muhammad is my ideal. What's an ideal? Ideal is something that you strive to become like. You emulate. You want to be like. For example, somebody says, Prophet Muhammad is my ideal. That means I want to be like him. I follow him. I want to attain the highest standards of character which characterized our revered prophet. So, a person cannot be claimed to have high ideals unless it is supported by the principles and values underlying that ideal. For example, somebody says that Prophet Muhammad is an ideal, yet he doesn't exhibit, he doesn't manifest in his behavior the principles of truth, honesty, mercy, the faith in God. How can somebody claim Prophet Muhammad to be an ideal while he does not exhibit or manifest in his character these principles and values? So, what the author William Ralph Emerson here wants to convey is that what makes a nation's ideals high? What are the ideals and principles and values needed that make a nation high and its foundation strong? What makes it mighty to defy the foes that round it throng? Here, what makes mighty defy? What makes a nation powerful enough? Mighty means powerful enough when it comes to defiance, when it comes to defending itself against the enemies. Foes means enemies that round it throng, that gather around it in large numbers to challenge its existence. What are the ideals? Taken the stanza together as a whole, what it conveys actually is what are the ideals, principles, the ideals of a nation and its supporting principles and values that are required for a nation to become powerful enough to defend itself against the large number of enemies that surround it, to challenge its existence. Round it throng, that means that gather around it in throng. And throng means, if we say that people in large numbers visited the hospital, means people in large numbers came to my residence. That means people thronged my residence. Throng means people in large numbers. So here, what are the ideals and values and principles required by a nation so that it becomes powerful enough to defend itself against a large number of enemies that gather around it in large numbers to challenge its existence? This was the first stanza of the poem. I think the size of the video is the problem actually. I would have continued it. This is a very interesting poem. I would have continued it, but the constants of the speed of the internet, put the technological constraints, the speed of the internet does not allow me to go beyond a certain size of the video that we make. So we will leave it for today. Let's call it a day, and tomorrow we'll be reconnecting again to proceed further. Till then, Khuda Hafiz.